what is your opinion, Rahul, on mortgage holidays? So we were discussing before, David, about mortgage holidays, and we think it's obviously if you can do it, if you're a buy-to-let investor or landlord, but Rahul, you are exactly that. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say if you're a buy-to-let investor that is looking to take out credit in the future and is looking to grow your portfolio, it's the last thing you'd want to do. And you'd also need to question why would you need to do that? If you're a portfolio landlord in particular, there's more stringent stress tests you have to pass recently, as a few years ago, in terms of getting buy-to-let mortgages. So lenders will ask you to have business plans and evidence of liquidity and such. So it's difficult on one hand to say you're a professional landlord and you've covered all your bases and you're mitigating risk by keeping obviously reserves to mitigate voids and also have surplus funds to take an interest holiday if you're looking to expand your portfolio, because you're basically saying to a lender that you haven't got liquidity, you haven't planned, you're in financial distress. So imagine you're then going back to them 3 months later and saying, "Oh, I found an opportunity. Back me on this. I want some lending."
Sorry, yeah.
Do you follow the logic?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I agree on that basis. On that basis. Well, you're the expert on mortgages, so you would be the one supplying.
I think what I'm saying maybe goes against standard guidance on this. A lot of credit reference agencies are saying, "Oh, it won't affect your credit rating, or it won't affect your credit score." But I think that's an irrelevant point. Whether it affects your credit rating is neither here nor there. If a bank further down the line says
it's the ability to pay, isn't
holiday due to coronavirus, and you say yes, and they say, "Right, fine. Well, we think that. Why did you need that?" They may investigate further. They may decide to not lend to you on that basis, which is fair enough. And no government can dictate what a future bank's credit lending decision is. These are private companies.
Yeah.
Surely you want banks to lend responsibly based on risk. So I wouldn't advise anyone who's looking to expand their portfolio to take a payment holiday. If you genuinely need to, it makes sense to do it.
Yeah. I mean, for your one time, this is what we were saying before, that we've got a handful of one-time only landlords, or accidental landlords, as the phrase is coined, that need it because it's their old flat, their mum's old house. The classic scenario that makes up the 65-70% of private rental sector in New Wales. So on that basis, yes. But if you are, and a lot of them obviously are in London and bigger cities. Yeah, I mean, I would have to sit on the side of the fence of you.
I think if you've got a lot of properties, if you're a landlord with a lot of properties, you should have sufficient cash reserves to service mortgage interest for 12 months.
Yeah.
Without any income. I don't know. That's maybe that's maybe overly cautious, but maybe some people it's 3 months.
I think I'd agree with you. I think that is the ideal world scenario. The trouble.
What signal are you sending out to your tenants? That you're undercapitalized, that you can't meet maintenance issues if you need. It's not sending out the right signals.
Well, it's a funny one because
that I'm professional, responsive, capitalized, and there to deal with their problems.
I mean, you've convinced me on that side of the fence. Now, I didn't really know that so much, and I had a conversation with Danny, and I agree wholeheartedly what you just said. If you're a buy-to-let investor looking at future investments, then you need to take advice on that. And I think when you go for the mortgage holiday on the site, they have the terms and conditions, so you understand the implication. But a lot of landlords will just click the button because they see the mortgage holiday.
Yes.
They need the advice from someone like yourselves to say, look, Danny or David, if you're going to invest in the future, you need to bear this in mind. So what's your position? Can you do that? But for, like Danny said, you've got the landlords that say they've got a pension that's not worth a carrot, and then they rely wholeheartedly on that rent coming in.
Yep.
For them, they've got a very small mortgage, but they need to do that because they've got to get by. So there will be that demographic of people that need to take the mortgage holiday because they're not going to later invest again. But for what you said, exactly, and what you said, because we need clarity on that, because there'll be people watching this who will not know either of those things. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, because you know, I'm not looking at investing again. I'm looking at other bits and pieces. But if I were, I've just taken 2 mortgage holidays, one on my residential and one on my buy-to-let, because I can. I'm not looking at investing again in the future. And for me, it allows me to not so much stress the other end with my business to pay myself my usual wage. So it is all circumstantial, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there perfectly with that. I mean, I've got one buy-to-let investor. He does bridging loans and stuff like that, and it's not ideal, and he's heavily mortgaged. And the thing is,
he has the last thing you want. Obviously,
oh my god,
debt.
Well,
if you're not receiving rent payments, you know, you're going to go into default pretty quickly.
Well, this is it, and you have one tenant that doesn't pay, and you know, you're on the phone straight away panicking. It's not a healthy position. And you're right. I think, you know, if you're going to be a buy-to-let investor, you do have to have that slush fund available, because you never know. Say you've got so many units, and then all of a sudden you realise, right, the electrical installation regulations are now changing. I've got to pay an average 300 quid an electrical report per property. I've got 100 properties. I need to have sufficient income to do it. So investors, you've got to have a slush fund and that money to fall back on, because it is a business. But with the, like you said, Danny, the accidental landlords and the one-time landlords, it's ideal for them. So I think it's good to have those two different perspectives.
Yeah, all I say is landlords, just think about the implication. That's all, and you know, they can then decide what's going to be the better route for them.
And based on the scenario,
But the thing is, I didn't know that before, and a lot of landlords out there don't know that before. That's why I think people watching this will really get a concept of that, because I didn't know that. I had a buy-to-let investor, and I actually advised them. I said, look, take a mortgage holiday, but I'm not his financial advisor. I'm his lettings manager. I'm the one that runs his portfolio, but that's really good for me. So I'm going to go back to him today and say, look, you know, this is the situation. Have you considered this and considered that?
It's advice, because
yeah, of course it is.
Also, imagine a scenario where you're currently on a 2% interest rate, and you know that's going to expire shortly. And when it comes to remortgage time, you may have been able to access a rate in the market at half that price, but the fact you've taken a mortgage payment holiday means you might not meet the credit criteria.
Availability,
so
absolutely.
In a way, although it might have been a couple of months liquidity saving, you know, it's still capitalized to loan, so it's affected your liquidity for maybe, say, 3 months. You know, that could be several thousands of pounds. But if you're paying double an interest rate on a large, that's going to multiple times that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So prime example. I've got a mortgage, obviously, like, you know, again, the bulk of Britain, and I haven't done it because I can afford it to get by it because I'm not furloughed. 2, I don't want that, you know, when I come to renegotiate my rate in a year, because I did a very low rate short-term 2-year, I don't want exactly that. And I spoke to all and sundry. I actually didn't speak to you, Rob. I should have had this conversation as well, because you would have convinced me quicker than the other 10 I spoke to. But did all-rounded approach and thought it's not suitable to me. And this is what we're getting out of this discussion: is it has to be an individual thing. Take the advice, think about it, and then speak to your broker or speak to your, you know, accountant or
financial advisor.
Financial advisor. It's a very individual, case by case, and it has to be specific to your circumstances. Exactly. But yeah, so, and on that as well, I was having another think about how people manage their investments and their portfolios out of Corona, and a lot of my clients have been asking about landlord insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, and I hadn't said anything because I wanted to have a good kind of reference point, and I can basically send them this video and a general advice from people that I've sought. What are your thoughts on it, Rahul? As a
I've never taken out landlord insurance myself.
Rent and legal we're talking about, yeah.
Sorry.
talking about rent and legal, aren't we?
Rent. Legal. Yeah. So
I don't want
insurance
people thinking Raoul's an uninsured landlord, that his buildings are not uninsured.
No,
So I just want to clear that one up.
all of those are insured, and I actually have a brokerage that sells that kind of insurance, but I've never taken out this kind of insurance, the legal insurance myself. Perhaps I'm open-minded to it. I'm just skeptical about the policies and whether they pay out. I mean, what use would a policy like that be to me at the moment if, for example, my tenants were unable to pay me rent due to COVID-19?
Yeah.
Well, for you, Raoul, I mean, because you are a sensible individual, you have a slush fund, probably not much. However, if it was quite a few properties, or if you were a singular landlord, I'll give you a little bit of an example. So say, for example, Mr. and Mrs. Smith have a property they rent out for 1,500 quid a month.
Yes.
Tenant stops paying the rent, so they lose their job or they get involved in an accident, or for whatever reason, they just stop paying the rent.
Yes,
So
yes.
in order to get possession back, you need to go for a Section 8, Round 8, 10 and 11 through the courts, blah, 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 blah. So meanwhile, they're not paying the rent. So they don't pay the rent for 2 months before you serve the Section 8. You're already in for £3,000. Then it goes on. And then you've got to apply for court. The courts are overrun. They've closed over 120 courts throughout the UK. The wait times are getting longer. So you're now...
You know what? On what you're describing, I'm thinking I need that insurance.
Good.
I suppose. Wait. So hear me out. So I suppose I've been doing this for 20 years, and that kind of event has never even entered my head. Maybe I've just been really lucky. I've never had that.
You've either been very lucky, or you've
never had that.
lucky, or you've made a good choice. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, I'll keep going. So 7 months in, you're now £10,700 out of pocket, plus legal fees. So you're probably looking about £12,000 before you get your property back. That's not taking into account the condition they've left it in. They could have done a couple of £1,000s worth of damage. So you look at that, or then you look at rent and legal cover. So say, for example, £1,500 a month. Yeah. Right, the rent and legal cover, you know, on average, a good policy, £1,500. Where are you? £1,500 a month minus. You're looking at, say, 37 quid a month, £37.50 a month. Times that by 12 months. So for £1,050, you could have protected that £12,000. So basically, you would have had all your rent covered, all your legal fees covered, and they would have paid out until they got vacant possession. So that's the benefit of that sort of thing.
Okay. But you're spending. I mean, your premium is over 10% of your rent, isn't it?
Well, it depends on you know what yield you're looking at. It's one of those things where you're underwriting your investment. That's just one example of one policy. That's a policy that I use, and it's called an infinity product. So what it does.
Does that pay out in the event of loss of rent due to COVID-19?
Well, the thing is, a lot of these insurance companies have stopped paying out, but there's a lot that are still going. So they will pay out eventually. However, they have stipulations in place. And this is why you have to read your small print or have an agent that does it for you. So the policies that I take out are through the referencing company that reference the tenant. So we know that the tenant's creditworthy, they pass the necessary checks to qualify for rent and legal. Then you get the rent and legal cover in place, and you know that I, as the agent, will then buy the policy for Raoul. So one, you don't have to fill out any paperwork, submit a rent schedule, submit all the details of the tenancy agreement, submit when you demanded the rent and how you demanded the rent. That's all done by me. So I buy the policy, charge it back to the client, and handle all the details. And I liaise directly with the rent and legal company, who have a team of solicitors in-house as well. So it's kind of, yeah, you're looking at a bit more.
I think for the right client, it could work.
Yeah.
For me, it seems quite an expensive premium to pay, given the risks involved. I think, you know, to some extent, it's kind of self-selection, depending on the kind of tenant you engage with and have on board at the start. You know, my typical tenant on an AST, they stay in their property for like 4 or 5 years.
That's good.
Which is unusual in London.
But I'm guessing your properties are in good condition. You hand them over well. You present them well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. That's the start of a good formula. It's when you've got the old school landlords that have the old philosophy of it will do a tenant. You know, it'll do. Any landlord that says to me now it will do a tenant, oh, it's rental, I kind of walk out. It's not the type of client I want to do business